Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Rodney Carpentier, 18-year law enforcement professional who has experience in the writing of a small-time mystery and crime procedural fiction. Welcome to the show, Rodney.
Thank you, AJ.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Rodney. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to discuss right now. We'll talk to you about your transition from law enforcement to becoming a novelist, and that too based on real life stories. We'll talk all about that. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience understands a bit more about who they are listening to.
Sure. So I've been in law enforcement for the last 18 years. I started out as a correction officer in 2006. I then switched from corrections to a sheriff's office where I worked as a patrol officer, as an investigator, and for the last 9 years I've been a first-line supervisor, and most recently moved into kind of more of an administrative role, doing more of the paperwork stuff, and kind of got off of the road and out of the day-to-day, interacting with people.
Right, Rodney. So to understand things from you, a lot of police officers, a lot of law enforcement officers are doing their job, but not everyone becomes a novelist or a writer. What about you? Why did you become? How did it come to you about writing something? Your life is itself so busy with so many things happening at the same time.
Correct. Between the professional life and having a family and everything, it really stems from I've always been interested in writing. I've been literature. I've always read ever since I was a kid. I went to college. I studied literature in college. I started writing back then, but I really found that I didn't really have a lot to say. And over the years of being in law enforcement, you kind of collect some stories, you meet some interesting folks. And about 3 years ago, I came up with this idea, working at midnight as a first-line supervisor. And I just asked myself this question, and it kind of became the log line for the novel. And I instead of kind of not doing anything with it, I decided to run with it. And after a 3-year journey, here we are. I got the novel out and starting to build an audience.
Right. So let's talk about mountains. You like mountains. A lot of people like mountains. Why do you like mountains?
The reason I like mountains, actually, it's not so much that I like mountains. I like a specific set of mountains. The Catskill Mountains in New York are beautiful. They've been the subject of literature and books for a long time, going all the way back to, if you've ever heard of the story of Rip Van Winkle by Washington Irving in the early 1800s. That takes place in the Catskills. There's a lot, if you go up into the town of Hunter, there's a lot of references to Rip Van Winkle. So it's always been the subject of literature. It's a beautiful area, and probably for the last 8 years or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, my wife and I have been hiking the Catskill 3500s. They have 35 mountains that are over 3,500 feet, and there's a club that you can join by completing. You have to complete all 35, and then you have to go back and do 4 of them specifically in the winter. So technically it's 39 hikes, but while you're doing those hikes, you're hitting all those mountains, but a lot of these trails hit so many other mountains and so many other things. And we spent the better part of a decade doing these hikes. So it became, I just kind of grew a fascination with the area and grew a fascination with the people who live there and the lifestyle up there, because it's a completely different world.
Completely different world, beautiful world, and you bring your fictional crime stories there? Why set it there? Why not anywhere where it is, that place is more of about these things?
Um, Specifically, the story that I tell involves a lot of secrets, and because it's not the middle of a city, it's not the middle of even a large town or a large area. It's so rural, it's so private that one of the key things of the novel, one of the key parts is that it's a cold case murder that's been cold for 40 years. And you, you wonder, how can something be unsolved for that long? And it's not that the murder's unsolved. The deceased person is unknown. They don't know who that person is. And, you know, just the idea that all these secrets are in them are up there, and that because it doesn't have this attention on it, that one of the characters is a podcast host, and he wants to draw out this story, and he kind of goes into the mountains with that intention. So I just thought, and having so much familiarity with the Catskills, and especially the town of Hunter and the town of Wyndham, I wanted to use it because just so many things I could pick out as specific locations or specific landmarks that would resonate with people.
Right, right, Rodney. So, you have this background of law enforcement, you understand it. And from some people's point of view, it might be an advantage because you know about all these things, you know about crime, you know about crime scenes and everything. Uh, to you, does it come as an advantage or a disadvantage? Because you will get too realistic about things, and you can't unnecessarily create like someone who does not know about those things, and they can take liberties, but you will, or your work or your realism, your understanding of the real facts will always bring you and not create something. Help us understand your process. And does this law enforcement, understanding of law enforcement, real things on the ground, does it help you? Does it also hinder your imagination?
That's a really good question. I actually have a presentation I'm working on for some writing conferences for hopefully in the next year or so, where I kind of go through the misnomers and the assumptions and the unrealistic stuff that both writers and movie producers put into their movies about law enforcement. So I have a lot of ideas about that. I don't find it a hindrance because working in reality, I like playing within the rules, and knowing how things would actually go kind of helps guide the story and helps kind of put some bumpers on it to say, yes, this could happen, but it may be an out there situation, but it's going to have some kind of pathway to go down, and there's going to be a procedure that goes with it. That part of my branding is the crime procedural, and to just knowing what the officer or the investigator is thinking in that moment, because there's rules. Again, I work in New York State, so there are specific rules to New York State with the New York State laws and how things are going to go. So the reality helps kind of make some things unbelievable also, where it's like, with a lot of the recent reforms, can somebody, just be released on an offense? And most of the times the answer is yes. So you're gonna get an opportunity to really kind of work within the rules to also allow it to kind of seem unrealistic also. If I guess I kind of went a little bit of a tangent there, but I just think that without the rules, nothing is believable, because you can just do whatever you want.
Right. One more thing is that, the real world of investigation, it's not like that they show. It moves at its own pace. Things will move at its own pace. People will work as per the way it should be worked. But in a book, especially in movies, they show it very differently. There has to be a certain pace. Even in a book, in novel, there has to be a certain pace. How do you create that pace, especially coming from a background like yours? Tell us a bit, through your debut novel, Our Lady of the Overlook. So this is the first part of the trilogy, isn't it?
Yes,
There
it
are
is.
two more books. Tell us in that, how did you do that, or is it just like the way it is? Is it pacey? Is it like any other crime thriller?
I don't know if it's like every other crime thriller. I think when you talk about investigations and things kind of developing and not necessarily having a natural storytelling pace, I think what I did with this, because the one of the background cases is a 40-year-old cold case murder with an unidentified victim, and you kind of have this catalyst of this podcaster coming in and interacting with the main character. His name is Mike, and he's a rookie. He doesn't know anything, and he's kind of wrapped up in this and learning all these different things about his father, who is deceased, but was the police officer who started the case originally, and he was the police chief for a long time. He then kind of spins off of this information he's learning and starts trying to understand both his father, the how to be a police officer, and then with this kind of this new perspective, this more modern perspective, this and with the driving of the podcast host who's entered into the scene, it kind of helps push things forward on that case, and getting the inquiries going, getting people thinking about it again, drawing attention to it. And when the modern day murder occurs, and Mike happens to be the person who's there, again, he's a rookie, he's brand new, he doesn't have any of these skills, but he has an opportunity to work with somebody who's a little bit more of a mentor character to start actually looking into the modern day case to try to figure out what happened there. And at the same time, Mike gets this idea that maybe the two cases are connected. So he's really kind of being, taking that the catalyzing effect of looking into the case after a long time, plus this modern case, and he kind of draws out some of the new stuff because he's thinking outside the box. He's not doing the same things that the investigators have done for the last 40 years and the different people that has passed through.
Right, right. Since it's a crime fiction, in terms of characters, how have you? And you say it's more from the real life, but you have put that into your story. So how have you modeled? Who have you modeled the characters here on in terms of police officers? Is he or she? I don't know. So is it modeled about around you, your understanding of things, or is it someone else? How have you chosen your characters? How have you brought them to life in your stories?
So what I've done is one of the things I talk about crime procedural and things like that, but it's also about portraying police officers like real people. We can all think of the famous nonstop cops or the nonstop detectives who that wraps up their entire life. Well, unfortunately, we have families, we have spouses, we have kids, we have outside things that we do. We coach little league or coach soccer, or you know law enforcement is what we do for 8 hours a day, and it's a passionate job, and you have to kind of want to do it. But at the same time, we also, at the end of the day, change out of our uniform, we get in our cars, and we drive home, and we got to worry about bills, and we have to worry about homework and all these other things. And I really wanted to get that feeling done of, of what these, what these people who put on a uniform every day actually are. And a lot of the characters that I built are, I call them amalgamations, or just kind of melting pots of different people I've met over, 18 years of law enforcement. There are the serious guys. Like I have a character named Paul, who's extremely squared away. He's very precise. He makes sure his boots are shined, his uniform is pressed, he looks good. He's got a very military bearing, and that's based on probably 5 or 6 different people I know who just have this, very precise way of existing. There's an investigator that Mike works with named Felix, who is very dapper. Even though he's a detective, he wears $100, more than $500 suits, to crime scenes and things like that, because he wants to look good. He has a a real desire to be this very kind of look this part. And I had an investigator I worked with for a number of years. He was GQ every day. He'd walk in and he had great suits. They fit well. He looked good. Whereas we have other investigators that their shirt's half untucked half the time, their ties loose around their neck. And he was a person who took pride in that. But also realistic characters. Mike's good friend in the book is a character named Hugh. He's a veteran officer, good at what he does, but he's also a little jaded. He's seen a lot of things. He's been on this for a long time, and he's not, and he just wants to, enjoy life a little bit, do his job, but, also, hey, there's something outside of here. He's the constant reminder from Mike, who's a young police officer, doesn't have all those attachments that I spoke of, and is so focused on doing a good job that he doesn't realize that there's more to life than just work. And then some of the antagonists, the police chief character is really tough. He's kind of a foil, and he's based on some people I've had issues with during my career, guys that put speed bumps in my way or made things a little bit more difficult. So I really just tried to base a lot of the police officer characters on people I actually know. And one of the one of the pieces of information I got back from my editor was, because I had multiple different points of view throughout the book, and she said, everybody in the book has a unique voice, and the way that they approach situations, it's not a retelling of the same point, the same story and the same point of view. It's how does this character look at what's happening versus how another character would look at it. And I purposely went through in the writing of saying, all right, I need to get this part of the plot done, but where can I do it that's interesting or out of the box, and whose perspective can I put it in, who is gonna put something fresh on it, so it's not hey, I need to get this forward, but what do they think about it? And it kind of moved the story forward in a kind of different way than just following one character or taking a first person point of view the whole story.
Right, Rodney. So tell us a bit about this book, Our Lady of the Overlook. What is I know about the background, but in terms of what does it mean, Our Lady of the Overlook, and tell us a bit about the story, if it's possible. And
Sure.
If I understand, it's already out.
Yes, it came out on October 29th. I've been selling it mostly through my website, although it is available on Ingram Spark and on Amazon. But yeah, to get to the story, it's called Our Lady of the Overlook because one of the major locations in the story is this place called the Overlook, based again on a actual location in the Catskills. And 40 years ago, it's where the body of this Jane Doe was located by some hikers. And after they found this body, it was beginning of the year, January. It's cold, it's frozen, it's They go to the bottom of the trailhead and happen to find a police officer, Mike Ellis's father, Charlie, and they bring him up, and he basically starts the initial investigation into into the case. You fast forward 40 years later, Charlie's passed away. Mike is now working at the same agency as his father for the town police department, trying to learn how to, just do the normal stuff, pull over cars, go to calls. And one night he is just sitting, relaxing, waiting for speeders or whatever the next thing is going to be. And he gets a call on the radio that there's a car that's left unattended by the trailhead to the same Overlook. And he responds down there, and he gets there. He doesn't see anybody at first, and he starts looking around, and then he finds a dead body. And then he realizes that he knows who this person is. And the story kind of, rolls from there, where he starts looking again to tie the two cases together, because again, they're same location, separated by the 40 years, but they have a lot in common. On the location, the investigating officer, the first officer on the scene, and it's just too much for Mike to ignore.
Right. There is much to learn and understand about all these things, and I'm sure this is just one book. What about the other two books? When are they coming out?
Well, book 2, I'm 3 scenes away from ending, which means I'll then put it away for about a month or so. Then I'll edit it. I already have an editor set up to start working in the middle of February on it. So the only thing I'm looking at is it'll probably be ready for summer. However, this one takes place in the winter. So I don't know about releasing a book that takes place in the cold in the summer, unless you want to escape from the summer heat. So I'm working on releasing that. Book 3, I haven't even started yet. I know where I want to end up, but a lot of things are still percolating. And also I have a ton of other projects I'm working on for the new year. I have a novel that I started back in college that I actually want to kind of bring to fruition. Kind of was directionless for a while, but now that I've decided that mysteries are going to be my medium, I'm kind of turning it into a mystery instead of just being this weird private school mess that I kind of have going right now. And then a couple other things. And I actually have a ton of material that I cut out of the first book of the Our Lady of the Overlook. Because the original direction I was going, I was actually following 2 characters on parallel paths, and they were going to meet in the middle. And I decided to go a different direction. But I wrote a ton of material in this other character's perspective. And I'm working on getting that kind of edited down, and we'll be plan on releasing that via Patreon and do kind of an exclusive thing on that, because it's not necessarily important to reading the 3 books, but it'll be a good kind of little extra thing. And like, if you fall in love with the books, you like the characters, you can follow along in this other medium also. So I have a bunch of things coming out for the new year. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited. And I got a little less than 4 years left in my law enforcement career, and I want to really focus on this going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to learn more from you, about your books. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Best way to connect is first through my website, www.rlcarpentierwriter.com. I got a lot of stuff on there, links to the books, links to some extra chapters. I have a blog. It's rlcarpentier.blog. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook at RL Carpentier Debut Novelist. I am on TikTok. That's kind of a developing thing. That's kind of a new thing for me. And I'm on Instagram, again, through RL Carpentier. So it's the best way to follow me. And again, I'll be coming out with the Patreon stuff. I do have a mailing list. If you'd like to sign up for that, you can do that through my website. I release a new newsletter every week with some of the more inane things in my life, but just to kind of keep people interested and people know that there's another book coming out and you're not just going to read this and fall off a cliff and have nothing else to go with it. So,
Right. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
thank you, AJ.